Hey guys, what's happening? So, there's a lot to unpack in this one, and for the most part, it's going to be focusing on Black Widow and Hawkeye, and the possibility that Marvel could be using a very interesting story arc between these two in Avengers Infinity War. And part of it takes from the 1610 universe, dealing with a specific story that some of you guys have been asking me to dive more into for a while now. And so, without beating around the bush, I'm just going to get straight into it. And I want to explore the possibility of an attempted murder on Hawkeye's family that was attempted by a Skrull Black Widow with red hair. And this idea or this theory pulls from a number of the comics and brings it together for one idea of what we possibly could see. And that's the idea of Clint, once being freed from the raft in Captain America Civil War, goes home to his family with the genuine idea of truly retiring and being genuinely serious about that this time. And we know from the prequel comics that when he left from the raft, he did go home and he saw his family and they were safe and sound. But what if, while he was with this family, Black Widow shows up, with red hair of course, who showed up at his home looking to kill him and his family? And this would actually be the first attempt of the Skrulls making their move on the Avengers. In this way, using an attack very similar to Von Strucker in Age of Ultron by starting with the quote weak ones and aiming first for Hawkeye, then Black Widow, so on and so forth. But I would go on to say that this was a failed attempt that would pour into Hawkeye's quote secret role, which we know is going to be a very big role. And if this is the case, he would be the first Avenger who would be aware of the Skrulls making their move on the Avengers. And that's not even to say that Hawkeye was the first person to see a Skrull in the MCU, because I believe Nick Fury, Captain Marvel, and possibly Everett Ross already know. And there's a high probability we'll learn more about that in the Captain Marvel film that comes out March of 2019. But if indeed a Skrull was sent to take out Hawkeye and his family, this would force him to move his family again, faking their death in order to make the assassination attempt seem successful, but then also return under a whole new identity, and that's when Ronin will be born in the MCU. And this wouldn't really take a lot of time to set up, because I would say when he returns as Ronin, his main focus is going to be assisting the Avengers in their attempt to stop Thanos before he really takes the time to explain what exactly happened, why he's in this costume, so on and so forth. And so this is where I blend two different story arcs together to really come up with this theory. Because in the past, the MCU has used a combination of the 616 universe, which was Marvel's main continuity, and the 1610 universe, which was a popular alternate reality. And from there we got Marvel Legacy, which actually takes a lot from the films and makes it canon in the comics, but still with a twist because it adds a lot more to the comics that we may potentially see in the films. But for this video, we're mainly going to focus on the 616 and the 1610. And in the 616 universe, the main continuity, after the events of Civil War, Hawkeye took on the role of Ronin in order to hide his identity and join the new Avengers. And this carried over from post-Civil War all the way into Secret Invasion. And much like in the comics how his character was used to connect Civil War and Secret Invasion, and even more so on a personal level, the MCU could be taking a similar route. And one reason that has me thinking this is because after Infinity War, after Ant-Man and the Wasp, in 2019 when we get Captain Marvel, not only will we learn more about the Kree, but we'll also get our introduction to the Skrulls in the MCU. And for that reason, Marvel has the opportunity to use Hawkeye under the title of Ronin to plant this seed that we'll see played out in a number of Marvel films going forward. And there's two main ways I could see this play out. First, starting with the 616, of course, and after I flesh that out, I'll jump over to Black Widow from the 1610 universe. But for now, first starting with the 616, like I said. And so now in your 616 universe with Clint Barton, who is Ronin at this time, he was deceived into believing that he had been reunited with his late wife. And she knew everything personal about their relationship, previous miscarriage, like crazy details. But when Reed Richards had invented a device that made it clear for the Avengers who was a Skrull and who wasn't, it was at that point that he discovered that it wasn't his wife, and he used one of Black Widow's guns in order to take the Skrull out. And for me, this feeds into the first part of the MCU theory, to where we know for a fact that Clint makes it home, sees his family, but instead of protecting them from a Skrull version of Romanoff, what if his family had already been taken and replaced with Skrulls who he had to kill in order to get out alive? And there would be something like the arrival of the Skrull Romanoff that would throw him off and cause him to be aware. But this would in turn give us a scene probably 4 or 5 minutes long. But it would give us a scene of Clint Barton having to kill his own family and best friend, ushering in a very short but very impactful introduction to the soon coming Skrull invasion. And that's one theory, which would be a crazy scene, and you know they're not really gonna show it actually happening. But this theory does feed into the Russo brothers' comments on only doing action sequences that are emotionally driven. And man, like, how do you build up something more emotionally driven than that? But if they do take this route in this first theory, it would explain the tattoos that we've seen on Jeremy Renner while filming in Japan. And the scenes that they're filming here could be either in Infinity War or in Avengers 4. But the tats that we see on him are very dark. They have skulls, they could be representing death or the loss of his family. And as for my first theory, with him fighting off and killing these Skrulls in his own home, this tattoo could be a tribute to his family with him believing that they're dead. And during this time in Japan, he could be meeting with someone who's possibly laying low. And while Clint is there trying to figure out what to do, this is when he will become Ronin as a way to hide his identity from the Sokovia Accords, reunite with the Avengers, and fill them in on the rest. And so for the second part of my theory, I want to jump over to the 1610, because in the 1610 universe, Black Widow betrayed the Ultimates, which were pretty much the Avengers in an alternate universe at this point. And this is really where I get the Black Widow Skrull idea from, because in the 1610 universe, this was truly Black Widow. Like, this was really her. She framed Captain America and Thor, she released the identity of the Hulk, she killed Jarvis, and she actually killed Hawkeye's family. And this taking place in Ultimates, I believe Volume 2, but this taking place is really where both of my theories stem from. But I would just say for the film's sake that this was a Skrull. And instead of this Black Widow going as far to do all the above, Clint would catch on to her because he knows that the real Natasha Romanoff is currently with Captain America and Falcon. And where the Skrull will make her mistake is by not knowing that Natasha Romanoff is currently sporting the blonde hair. And this could easily get past the Skrull's intelligence, because while Romanoff is with Cap and Falcon, no one really knows their next move. They don't even know their next move, because they're hunting down Chitauri Tech in no specific order, which makes them even harder to trace. But this is how Clint would know when he sees a different Natasha Romanoff with red hair appear at his home, or possibly already be there, with his wife saying something like, "Oh, look who came to see us." And when Clint sees that it's Romanoff, he tells his wife to take the kids and go upstairs, or something of that nature. But this also goes with the possibility of Cap inviting everyone to join him and Romanoff in the search for Chitauri Tech, in which he obviously declined that offer. But that scene in the prequel comics lent for the opportunity for Hawkeye to be aware of what Romanoff looks like if they were to meet. And that's really it, because I have no other idea why they would make her hair blonde in this movie. And besides the reason of just doing it to do it, I couldn't think of a better reason than using that to differentiate her from another version of herself. And just as a notable mention, I will say that when we were first revealed this, a lot of people thought it was a reference to Yelena Belova, who was also a Black Widow, which it could be, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe they already used her character on Agent Carter. And because of that, I just don't think Black Widow would go into hiding under the alias of somebody who died and was already wanted for murder. I just don't think that would be a good choice. But just to be clear, this is all the realm of speculation. And in my opinion, this is a great opportunity to give Hawkeye a small role that would have a huge impact, and also plant a seed preparing us for Captain Marvel, but at the same time not stealing the thunder of Avengers Infinity War. And with that being said, either one of these theories would still follow the format of Marvel separating one of the Avengers from the rest of the team in order to come back with a huge piece of information. And with either of these scenarios, I thought of it carefully. They don't have to kill the family, because I really don't want that to happen. And that's kind of the thing you see everywhere on the internet right now. But if they set it up to where Clint believes that something happened to his family, they could use him much like they did Thor in Age of Ultron, where Thor had his visions of the Infinity Gauntlet and collecting the Infinity Stones, which ultimately led to the birth of Vision, and Thor continuing that journey at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, which both play a huge part in Infinity War, because when that film opens, he's still searching for the remaining stones. But with Marvel executing this method in the past, it does more than just get him and Hulk out of the way for Civil War, but it also plants a number of seeds that we would later find out build up to Infinity War. And what I did for this theory was pretty much take that same equation, take out Thor, and put in Hawkeye. And instead of planting seeds for Infinity War, this will plant a present day seed for the Skrull invasion. So when Captain Marvel comes out next year, it wouldn't be like this flashback to the 90s and showing us Skrulls just came out of nowhere. And I say that because Marvel usually likes to prep us in previous films before totally introducing us to something new. And in my opinion, I feel like Ronin is a very good way to do that. And that's just my opinion, just some thoughts. And because Clint wasn't the first to take on Ronin in the comics, I believe he'll be the same in the MCU. And what I mean by that is don't be surprised if later on in Phase 4, if Marvel uses the Ronin character to introduce new people into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that's it for this one, guys. I'm interested to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments below. Later this week, I will be announcing the winner to the most recent giveaway. And during that announcement, I'll also do a Q&A. So be sure to follow me on Twitter. I got the link down in the description. And pinned to the top for a little while, I have a place where you can just ask all your questions, and that's where I'll be reading them from when I do the Q&A. But I'll only be reading the questions from Twitter, so be sure to go there to get your question in. But that's it for this one, guys. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe so you can catch the spills every week. Alright, later.